everybody. Welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jousman. Now, this week we are missing one person. That is Kim the Geek. She, thanks to the busy holiday season and with work, was not able to be here today. So, the few folks that were eagerly anticipating the results of the Battle for State Supremacy, you will have to wait one more week. But let's just say I don't want to have to toot my own horn, but toot. Anyway, as you know, I'm pretty humble on this show. But I wanted to get somebody else on the show this week. You know, we've had a lot of special guests on the show. We've had luminaries from the adult film industry. We've had comic book creators, and now we have our first professor.
Thank you.
All right, tell the folks at home who you are.
Well, my name's Aubrey, and I am a professor, as Tim mentioned. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's it.
Okay.
That's all I am.
A professor of what?
I teach paralegals, or people who want to be paralegals, who are people who help out in law firms.
Nice.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that get coffee or get paperwork?
No.
I'm kidding.
They actually can do anything that lawyers can do except give legal advice and appear in court.
Just like me.
No.
You don't do that, Tim. All right. Now, a tradition on the show here is with anybody new that comes on, they got to answer one question.
All right.
And that question is this. What is your nerd origin story?
Well, interestingly, I think that I was pretty nerdy as a very small child. And then I went through a non-nerdy phase. Mm-hmm. Like adolescence, and then became nerdy again as an adult. So my initial nerd origin story is probably seeing Star Wars. I lived on an Air Force base because my dad flew B-52 nuclear bombers.
Ooh, jeez.
So I lived on this very intense Air Force base that had a really great theater, and you could go to the movies for like 50 cents or something really cheap. And I saw the first Star Wars movie and was pretty obsessed with Star Wars for the next 4 or 5 years until we moved away to another town, and I sort of had to deal socially with being a new kid.
Right.
And then I was not a nerd at all, I don't think, until I went to law school. And then I rediscovered my nerdiness because pretty much all people in law school are nerdy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, to me, nerdy is all about passion. You know, everybody's passionate about something. You know, now primarily for folks that listen to the show, you'll understand that, you know, myself and the other folks that have been on the show, like Kim and whatnot, are primarily pop culture nerds. But you can be nerdy about anything.
Sure.
You know, it's all about passion. So, anyway, you had some thoughts about JK Rowling.
I did. I had some thoughts about JK Rowling because JK Rowling came out on December 19th, just a little bit more than a week ago, and tweeted a pretty turfy tweet, meaning trans exclusionary radical feminist. Mm-hmm. She, as everybody knows, I'm sure, is the author of the Harry Potter books and the lots of other stuff.
Right.
And has a great following and lots of products and experiences available for people interested in her work. And she lives in the UK. And right now in the UK, there is a number of things happening that are anti-trans. And people seem to be okay with saying that trans people essentially don't exist. So she tweeted last week. So what she said was, dress however you please, call yourself whatever you like, sleep with any consenting adult who'll have you, live your best life in peace and security, but force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real. So she was tweeting her support for a woman named Maya Forrester, who was fired from her job, or her contract wasn't renewed with her tax job because she had tweeted a number of anti-trans tweets. So then she sued her employer, saying that her tweets were protected by the UK's essentially freedom of speech law. And the judge found that her comments were so destructive and out of the norm that they weren't protected by the UK's freedom of speech laws. And so JK Rowling is essentially coming out in support of this woman whose anti-trans tweets got her fired from her job, and saying that she shouldn't have been fired. So
That, yeah, I mean, from what I understand, she does have a bit of a history too of putting her foot in her mouth in a lot of things. I know with one of the characters in her book, what was the Harry Potter's girlfriend?
Hermione,
No,
not his girlfriend.
no. He had an Asian girlfriend for a while.
Yeah, Cho Chang.
Cho Chang. And apparently, I guess people were upset about how Cho was presented not only in the books but in the movies as well. But I did come across a tweet from somebody stating that folks, like trans folks, minorities were sounding the alarm about J.K. Rowling for years, but people weren't really listening until something like this occurred.
Yeah, so I think the thing with J.K. Rowling is that she has done a number of anti-trans things in her books and said some things in her personal life. But she has apologized for it afterwards, and sort of said, "I didn't mean it like that." But in this case, she has said she hasn't apologized for it. She said that she does support this idea that sex is basically equivalent to gender, and so if you are female at birth, you are female forever, and if you're male at birth, you're male forever. That there can be that it has to do with your chromosomes, and people don't have an experience of being one gender or another, that it's all biological. So she sort of doubled down on what she said in the tweet, and so she's taking that side in the debate that's going on in the UK about trans issues. She's taking the side of the turfers in the UK.
And it sounds like it's along the same lines of like mansplaining, like a guy telling a woman, "Oh, I've never experienced sexual harassment in the workplace, so it must not be real."
Right. So like, I'm not trans, or I don't relate to the trans experience, and so therefore these are really just trans women are really just men in dresses.
Exactly. Yeah. Just not thinking that just because it's not something I personally experienced, it must not be real. And that is certainly not the case. And with the trans community in general, I mean, that's. Come on, they need our support more than anybody these days. I mean, especially with the conservative turn that both Britain and this country have taken when it comes to politicians taking over. They need our support more than anything. So it is very upsetting that she has taken this stand for. Against a large portion of people that probably were, buying her books when they were kids. It's just sucks.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, Hogwarts was like a place that you could think about being, Luna Lovegood, and sort of odd and be accepted, and so a lot of people had fantasies about what if if my childhood was more like Harry Potter's childhood. And then to have the author, the creator of that universe that you feel really comfortable with, come out and say something that essentially denies your existence, it has to be really hurtful, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is really hurtful, and it's sad that any artist of any stature, whether it's someone who sold books like her and has all kinds of movies made on her work, all the way down to someone in my position. Someone in my position with a podcast with very few listeners came out with comments like this, they would deserve just as much of the ridicule as J.K. Rowling is getting, because, again, why try to exclude people from being happy? If someone identifies as a woman, they're a woman. I mean, that's just a fact. So why? I don't get people sometimes. They suck, you know.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure they do.
They do. They do. Well, let's switch topics here to something a little more cheerful. Stan Lee. You're familiar with him, of course. Everybody is.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. If he were alive, on the day we're recording this, it would have been his 97th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. So, comic legend, creator of characters like Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, and stuff like that. And I've already told you and showed you the video, but I've had the chance to actually ask him a question. So if I ever get like a gravestone, I'm more than likely I'm going to be cremated. But if I do get a gravestone or something like that, that video will be on loop at all times, because that by far is one of the coolest things I've ever did. But what are your first memories of Stan Lee?
I don't know that I have any first memories of Stan Lee. I haven't been that exposed to Stan Lee.
Okay. So it sounds like it's been relatively recently with his cameos in his movies more than anything.
Yeah, for sure. The movies that I've seen that he's had cameos in.
Okay. Yeah, I've been a fan of Marvel since I was a kid. I mean, one of the first cartoons I grew up on was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and Stan Lee on occasion would narrate some episodes. And then, of course, with starting with Mallrats, I think that's the first time I remember, seeing Stan Lee as Stan Lee. I'm sure you've seen Mallrats, right? Mm-hmm. Great film. But I do recall too, though, after the fact, that he was in the TV movie The Trial of the Incredible Hulk.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a TV movie they did as kind of a backdoor pilot to also make a Thor TV show, because Thor was a character, but they put the Hulk on trial, and David Banner in the show turns into the Hulk, and then everybody in the jury leaves except for Stan, and he's just sitting there like, what? So that was a cool cameo from him there. But
well, he clearly would never have convicted the Hulk.
No, I mean, maybe his character would have done well in the OJ trial too. I don't know, but anyway, but just wanted to talk about a couple of his creations here, like Spider-Man. I mean, did you read Spider-Man comics growing up, or watch any of the cartoons?
I watched the cartoons, yeah. I never really read any comics.
No comics, period?
No comics, period.
Well, this show is done. No, I'm kidding. I'll be the first to admit too. It's only been within the past 10 years that my comics reading has greatly picked up, and that's because of apps that you can get on like an iPad or a Samsung device as well. Marvel has a great app called Marvel Unlimited. $9.99 a month, $69 a year. You get access to over 25,000 comics. Just a lot of good stuff there, but I loved reading the origin of Spider-Man just because of how dark it is. I mean, Amazing Fantasy issue 15, the very first appearance of Spider-Man ever. That's where his uncle is killed, and the last page is Spider-Man in the depths of despair and depression after capturing the guy who killed his uncles, walking away into the darkness. And it has the classic line, with great power there must also come great responsibility. But comics, even in the 60s, did not end like that. The beauty of what Marvel Comics did is kind of bring the characters down to earth more so than the DC Comics, because DC Comics, up until recently, and we can thank that jackass Zack Snyder for this, but up until recently, they've been kind of aloof in terms of you cheer for them, you are glad that they're heroes in that particular universe, but with Superman, he's an alien. With Batman, he's a billionaire. With Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, she's an Amazon. It's just not something that the average reader can necessarily relate to. Whereas with Stan's creations like Peter Parker, me, was definitely an awkward teenager. I mean, I did not have the luck with women that Peter Parker did. I mean, both Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane Watson. Wow. Still, you could relate to the struggles he had, growing up, and that's what I, really liked what Marvel brought to their characters.
Yeah, right on.
Mm-hmm. Spider-Man is a classic, of course. Another one of my favorites, The Incredible Hulk. I'm sure you remember the old TV show.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Yeah. Any favorite episodes, or just watch? It was on in the background as a kid.
No, I definitely remember watching it because it was on around the same era as The Dukes of Hazzard, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember him sort of running through walls and being strong.
Yeah, I mean, Lou Ferrigno, I actually had a chance to shake his hand once.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was Wizard World 2017. My friend Maura went with me, and she's one of the most. She's from New York, so she's one of the most assertive people that you will ever meet, at least on the Pacific Northwest. Maybe back home, Maura is considered shy, but we went there, had a chance. She actually got Nichelle Nichols to shake my hand. So that was cool, getting Uhura from the Starship Enterprise. But the Hulk, she shook his hand first, and then I was like, "Hi, Mr. Hulk." And, didn't really have much to say after that, anything witty. But it just the grip on the guy's hand. I got pretty big hands myself, but he had gigantic hands that just like yes. But the thing I liked about it too is the fact that the TV show showed that you can be faithful to a character while still making some pretty radical changes, because the Hulk in the comics, even at the time the TV show was out, the Hulk always was able to talk. Yeah, in the TV show, it was just the growls and the yells. Because the TV show, I didn't realize this till after the fact, essentially the producers made it a superhero version of Les Miserables.
Oh, whoa.
Yep. Because the investigative reporter who was constantly following David Banner around was essentially Javert, and
right.
Banner was Jean Valjean. So that was a great take on it, and it would be nice too if the current MCU were able to do a little bit more with that idea. I know that for the Disney Plus app, they're coming out with a She-Hulk show, and that's the Hulk's cousin, who's also a lawyer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just cause. Yeah, but it's unfortunate that the standalone Hulk movies never really hit it big, because I think there is a lot of meat on that bone for that character that could be explored. Yep, and last but not least, I mean, four of my favorite characters that he made, the Fantastic Four. They've never really been explored as well as they should have in the movies, but I have hopes that now that they're going to be a part of the MCU going forward, that with Kevin Feige on board, that they'll finally crack the code to make a good Fantastic Four movie, because really the only one that is any good was not even supposed to see the light of day. It was these German producers somehow got the rights to the Fantastic Four, because in the late 80s, early 90s, Marvel was in a huge financial mess. But it seemed like anybody and their mother was able to get the film rights off of these Marvel characters. But what happened, the German filmmakers went to Roger Corman and said, we have to make a film by X date, and if we don't, then we're going to lose the license to the Fantastic Four. So make something. As long as it's in the can, we're never going to show it, but as long as it's in the can, we can keep those rights. And they did, and the movie is goofy. If you've ever seen a Roger Corman movie or are familiar with his level of quality in his movies, it's something that somebody in like a public access TV show would be proud of showing, but it was not something that was going to be on the big screen or anything like that. But it has heart. compared to what the other two versions of the Fantastic Four movie did, like the Jessica Alba one, which was okay when it came to the special effects, but just overall it had no soul. It was just cookie cutter. You could tell it was put together by focus groups thinking we could sell this for a toy, we could sell that for a toy, with no real love for the characters. And then in 2015 the Josh Trank version of the Fantastic Four, which was just god awful. Horrible movie. Thankfully it sounds like Josh Trank understands now that his take on it was not the best, but it was just bad. I would not recommend anybody seeing that. But Stan has a very rich legacy. It's a complicated legacy too, because especially in comics from that era, you had instances like, are you familiar with Bill Finger? Okay. Bill Finger was a co-creator essentially of a lot of the Batman mythos. When Bob Kane was given the contract to create Batman, he had the idea for it, but didn't really know how to execute it. So he went to Bill Finger, and Bill Finger came up with the gray outfit for Batman, the logo. He came up with the cowl, because I guess originally originally Batman was just supposed to wear like a Lone Ranger type mask and whatnot. He came up with the Joker. He came up with the Penguin, I believe, and a number of other stuff. But Bob Kane worked it in his contract that DC would only ever credit him as the creator of Batman. So Bill Finger died penniless and in obscurity.
Wow, that's really sad.
It is sad, but there is a happy ending there. There was a documentary on Hulu called Batman and Bill. There was a children's author who liked to write biographies based on people, and he was going to write one on Bob Kane, but the more research he did, he found out how influential Bill Finger was. So he actually was able to find Bill Finger's granddaughter, and was finally able to convince DC to give Bill Finger proper credit. So starting with Batman v Superman, that horrible Zack Snyder movie. That was the first time, though, that Bill Finger was credited as the co-creator of Batman.
That's awesome.
It is, and definitely if you do have Hulu or ever do like a free month, make sure that's one you check out. So,
okay,
really good. But you were reading a book, and you wanted to talk about it.
I was reading a book. So this book is a little bit old. It's about 5 years old. It's called Sex from Scratch.
I like that topic.
Making Your Own Relationship Rules. And it's by Sarah Merck, who is, or was at the time, the online editor of Bitch Magazine. Are you familiar with Bitch Magazine?
No.
Bitch Magazine is a magazine based here in Portland. Its subtitle is The Feminist Response to Pop Culture. And it's been around for a really long time, and it was sort of very influential in feminist circles. And so she also writes for Willamette Week or the Mercury. I can't remember which one, actually. So Sarah Merck is a Portlander, and she wrote this book that essentially, the premise of the book is that everybody should be empowered to have healthy and happy romantic lives.
Imagine that.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah,
And that the recipe, I guess, or vision that many of us grew up with about how to accomplish that, how to have a healthy and happy romantic life, doesn't necessarily serve everybody well. And she, when she was in her 20s, apparently wasn't happy in her relationship and was trying to figure out different ways of thinking about romance. And so she sort of traveled around the country and talked to a bunch of really influential and artistic and creative media types about their relationships. Mm-hmm. And so the book is sort of a series of vignettes organized around different ideas of relationship, and some really great people contributing then to the book. And really, I really liked the book, and as I wish I had a book like this when I was 16 or 20. when it would have been more useful to be like, oh, there's like a bunch of different ways to have romance in your life. It isn't just meet someone and eventually marry them and have kids with them and spend the rest of your life having sex with that one person.
Yeah, I mean, not only does that get boring over time, but two, it's not realistic. I mean, people change. Even people that, instantly fall in love and go the marriage route and, stick with monogamy and whatnot, over time, people change, people become different, and oh my gosh, there's this one secret that they don't tell you. Just because you get married in a monogamous relationship with somebody doesn't mean you don't get attracted to anybody else. Golly gee whiz, imagine that.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of my favorite things from the book, or people from the book who contributed. One is Michelle T. Do you know Michelle T. at all?
No.
She wrote some really great books like The Chelsea Whistle and Valencia. And her little vignette is about being single and the sort of choosing to be single and not necessarily want to be partnered. And I think that she was chosen to sort of represent that point of view because she decided to have a kid on her own and not get married or not sort of co-parent with anybody. Like, she just decided she wanted to have a kid and she was going to do it as a single person.
And I'm sure with our patriarchal society as it is, she had no blowback from anybody about that whatsoever, and she was totally supported too.
Well, I don't know about that. This is all... what's included in the book is before she gets pregnant.
Okay.
But
I'm skipping again here. So.
I mean, it's definitely a different kind of idea than the typical idea about, oh, I want to have a kid. Most people think, oh, I've got to find a partner before I can have a kid. Mm-hmm. But what she says is, don't be with people who bring you down. So. That's her rule that she suggests that people follow.
Where was this in 2002? Long story there. But, I mean, because to your point, you said, you wish you had a book like this when you were 16. Part of me wants to say that I would want that as well, but there's also a part of me that knows that me at that age and me in my 20s would not have listened, because... At the time, I was just fall in love and just make whatever it is work type of deal, and didn't realize that, in relationships, you got to give it time, because you may be with somebody, you may like them for certain reasons when you first start out, but it takes time to find out if that person is really meant to be in a relationship with you, because relationship and a friendship, two different things, really. That person that you do choose to, live with and spend your time with, that has to take some time and whatnot. And me, I was an idiot. I was a moron.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I think I probably wouldn't have listened to, 20-year-olds are not famous for listening to other people's advice about anything.
Oh, no.
But just to have, like, the consciousness of, like, oh, it might be possible to be in a relationship with more than one person at one time, right? Mm-hmm. That wasn't even anything that anybody brought up as a possibility. And I was a women's studies major, so if anybody was going to know about it when I was 20, it was me.
Yeah.
And I had no clue. I
certainly didn't. And back in Grand Rapids, I mean, that was not something that was going to happen anyway. Too conservative, but...
And then the last thing I'll say about the book is the other person that I was really excited to see represented in the book was Betty Dodson, who is a sex educator from the way, way, way back. And at the time this book was published, she was 83. And she talks about this relationship that she's having with a much younger man. And,
Good for her.
Right? and how she's accepting that she's going to have to let him go because, she's 83 and
he's 27.
He's 47 and
47? God damn.
He's going to need
Good for her.
Right, exactly. And it's sort of like as I get older, I mean, I'm not even 47, but I think about what's it going to be like to be an old lady, and it's just really inspiring to have an 83-year-old talking about her like ongoing sex life. She talks about how she picked up another man, or another man started chatting her up at a restaurant the night before, and she was going to wait and see if he called her. And
we could play bingo.
Just like a really active sexual life, like she's still engaged in having orgasms at 83, and that was just really super inspiring to me that I maybe someday I'll be 83 and still having orgasms
and brushing away all those guys in their 40s knocking down your door.
Some things never change, Tim.
Well, there you go. Yeah. All right. Well, something made me feel really, really old the other day.
What was that?
Well, and it's not much these days. I mean, one, I can look in the mirror and, see my hair fading away. Two, The Simpsons.
Oh.
30th anniversary of their first episode of the show, The Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. Hit. That's the episode where they find Santa's little helper. Now, of course, for longtime fans, fans know that the show actually existed before this as little comedy bits on the TV show, the Tracy Ullman Show. Yep.
Yeah.
But this was the first time since the Flintstones that a network took a chance on essentially an animated sitcom. And boy, did it pay off. Mm-hmm. You would think. I mean, it is odd, and it's something that will probably never happen again, to have an entertainment medium that was popular when we were in junior high, that is still popular, so to speak. Probably not as much as when it first came out, but still popular enough for my young one, who's also in junior high right now, at the same exact age when the show came out. It is.
And is he into
The Simpsons?
The Simpsons?
Oh, he was raised on it, of course.
Okay, so he loves it.
Oh, he loves it. Yeah, I mean, I showed you the video of him to me pretending I was Darth Vader, right?
Right,
yeah.
Yes, absolutely, you did.
Of course, another cool thing. But yeah, I mean, because like kids show stuff, a lot of kids shows are just garbage. Mm-hmm. Like I know my oldest, he's 18 now, but one of his favorite shows, he's technically my stepson on paper. He's my stepson, but I don't like that term. He's my son. But when I first moved in with his mother, he was about 1, and there was a show that he watched called The Wiggles. Ooh, horrible show. It's like these 4 Australian guys just, hi kids, and just putting on an act, and then just I just wanted to throw the TV out the window. So immediately I would, I took out my DVD collection of Simpsons episodes, and one episode I showed him was one of my absolute favorites from season 4. I Love Lisa.
Great episode.
Great episode, and I can't tell you the countless amount of times that I was Ralph Wiggum. Just a woman in my life showing just being nice one time, and then me all of a sudden, she's in love with me, she chose me. But one thing I've become to really appreciate about that episode, especially the last couple of years, is how it ends on a real positive note if you think about it. I mean, Ralph did not like the fact that Lisa did not reciprocate the feelings back, and he was butthurt for a bit. But at the end of the episode, they became friends again. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a very beautiful, positive thing for young guys to hear. That, it's that, women, even though a woman may not be attracted to you, does not mean that she does not find value in you as a friend. Enjoy that friendship, just because you're not going to get anything else from it. doesn't mean it doesn't have value for one, and two, she's probably doing you a big service by not going into a relationship, because if one person is not feeling it, if you're trying to force it, it's not going to work. So, I thought that was a rather beautiful message. Now, granted, with Ralph, they've made him dumber and dumber and dumber throughout the years, which is...
He was pretty dumb to start with.
Dumb, but...
Eccentric.
But you could still picture Ralph being a real kid, whereas now he has funny one-liners, but he's just there for the joke.
Yeah. Sort of like the mean kid.
Nelson?
Yes, Nelson.
Yeah, Nelson. I think back to, there's another great episode, 22 short films about Springfield. The last part of that was when Nelson laughed at a guy that drove by in a car, and then the guy gets out of the car, but he's super tall, and Nelson's like, oh crud, and then the guy catches up with him and gives him a lecture about, this is the biggest car I could afford in my tax bracket, and then he made... Today, the guy would be arrested for doing this, but he made Nelson pull down his pants, walk in front of his car at very slow, and then wave to everybody and blow kisses. I mean, imagine an adult doing that in real life to a kid. That guy would be tossed in jail. But, for The Simpsons, for Nelson Muntz, it was funny, I guess.
It might be okay in some places, like Joe Arpaio's...
Arizona. Yeah, the pardon, or, deepest, darkest Mississippi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're showing the love of the Lord here, yeah. But it's been on. I mean, there's so much that could be said about that show. I mean,
Absolutely. That show is amazing, and has influenced so many other shows that are also good, that came after The Simpsons. Like, I don't think we would have South Park if we didn't have The Simpsons. We wouldn't have Family Guy if we didn't have The Simpsons.
No, we certainly wouldn't have Family Guy.
Right. What would they talk about?
Yeah. I mean, and I say this as a Family Guy fan, but that show is just a more bawdy version of The Simpsons. Just more dick jokes than, what you would get with an episode with Homer or something like that. But, there's a reason it stood the test of time. And there are some people who wish that it probably could have gone off the air at season 8 or season 9. As far as I'm concerned, I would much rather... I want it on the air still. To me, the world is a better place with The Simpsons on the air, because a bad Simpsons episode is still going to be better than most anything else out there.
Agreed, absolutely. Especially when reality TV is sort of or like project TV is the only other thing to watch in those primetime slots.
Yeah, and it's been a long time since I've actually watched any sort of regular TV. The only recent thing that I've caught was Crisis on Infinite Earths from the CW. Their big superhero collective. For me, it was great. I'm sure for other people that don't like those shows, like, ew, gosh, all those supermodels, what are they doing? But anyway, so. All right, as is tradition on the show, we have an album focus, and since you are the guest this week, I
got to torture you with an album of my choice.
Not torture, I wouldn't say that. Now, when we post the episode, I'm assuming you're going to go on social media and be like, oh my God, I was on a podcast, yay! Probably not that exuberant, but you're going to tell people, and hopefully a few of your friends and whatnot will listen to the episode and then spread the word about how great we are. But I wanted to give a little disclaimer up front here with the album focus that we do each week on this show. It is honest opinions that we give. Now with Aubrey here, this is an album that means a lot to her, so she's going to have a lot of positive things to say about it. I may not necessarily have positive things to say about it myself, but one thing I do want to make it clear is that, when we talk about the album focus on the show, we keep it in the mindset of what Siskel and Ebert used to do. Because just because I may have a contrary opinion to what Aubrey has about this album does not make her opinion wrong, and it doesn't necessarily make my opinion wrong either, because enjoyment of music is purely subjective. And I don't want to be one of those people that, oh my God, this band sucks, even though they have a record deal, they're making a lot of money. Who am I to tell, like Metallica sucks. They're making millions upon millions of dollars. They do not suck. You may not enjoy their music. That's completely different. But you get my point, hopefully.
Absolutely, I get your point.
It is about, we're going to go through the album that she picked. Tell the folks what album.
So the album is the Neutral Milk Hotel's second album that they released, and it is called In the Aeroplane Over the Sea. It's also the last record they released.
Yep. And what we do on the show here is go through the album track by track, because especially with streaming services like Spotify, Apple Music, and whatnot, people, and I realize the more I listen to this show, I say "and whatnot" a lot, and I say a lot too. So if you ever do a drinking game, don't, because you would probably die with the amount of times I say that. But albums are getting to be a lost art more than anything. Just getting a group of songs together to kind of create a feeling that the artist is trying to convey, and not just trying to slap 12 songs together and call it good. That is definitely a lost art, and what we are trying to do on the show is kind of highlight albums that we like, to just get people to actually listen to the whole thing for once, and not one or two tracks that they may have heard on Spotify or something. So we will go.
And I've been inspired by your album segment on your podcast to do that with some other albums. So
all right,
hopefully some other people have as well. And
you better. Well, you said you were inspired. I mean, how so?
Well, I just listened to some albums that I wouldn't have listened to
Which
otherwise.
Ones?
I re-listened to the Queen is Dead, the Smiths album that you guys talked about. And the Who album. Yeah. So
I love the Who.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because I listened to the podcast, so I heard about that.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hopefully maybe we can inspire some people to listen to this whole album, because I do think this particular album is, it definitely hangs together as a piece of work, in my opinion. Like the tracks are related to each other, and the work makes more sense if you listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's like, it would be like pulling the fifth track from Sgt. Pepper and just listening to that and trying to get the whole feeling of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. You can't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, what we will do is go down each song in the album track by track and kind of give our thoughts about it. First track on the album here is King of Carrot Flowers, Part 1. Tell us your thoughts.
I love this song. It's got so what we'll see later on in this album is that there's some very interesting instrumentation, but it starts out pretty simple, and this track has essentially a jangly guitar and lead vocals that have a nice melody, and it's probably one of my favorite tracks on the album. Just because it's a nice song, and I like a lot of the lyrics. And this song has to do with love, and the lyrics are pretty simply related to love. That is, you can actually figure out what he's talking about in the lyrics, which we'll also see kind of as the album progresses. That's more and more difficult to do. So it's kind of like a simple beginning, and I like simplicity, so I like this song.
Nice. For me, listening to this album made me realize that I don't focus as much on lyrics as you would expect. I mean, maybe it's because of the type of music that I generally listen to. A lot of Judas Priest and stuff like that, just loud, intense stuff, that the lyrics are not necessarily as important as what they could be. So I didn't focus too much on the lyrics here, but, if you listen back to previous episodes, I don't really do that too much anyway for even, albums I bring to the mix here. But for this particular song, the accordion that they used in this particular song, in my opinion, the mix was a little off. I thought the accordion was a little too powerful and just more of a distraction than what it added to the song. I'm not against accordions by any means. I mean, I do like Weird Al Yankovic after all, but I just felt in this particular instance for this song, just the mix was kind of off, and that was more distracting in it than anything. I will say the harmonies with the singer were really, really spot on. I really did like those.
Oh, nice. Oh, well, I'm glad to hear you like something about that first track.
I'm not going to shit on the album. That's not what I do here. I mean, even with the Smiths, I looked for positives in the Smiths, and I knew I was not going to like that. And Kim was hoping. Kim was really, really hoping that I would. But anyway.
Well, I hear what you're saying about the mix, and of course, just like I think you guys discussed this with regard to the Smiths album as well. Maybe not. Maybe it was a different album, but. The story of how this album got made was like a 4-track, and a bunch of young guys who were living in a house together and trying to learn their instruments and write these songs and do this album.
Yep.
So like the technology was what it was, and I think it's hard. It's hard to get a good mix on a 4-track.
Yeah.
Recording on cassette kind of setup.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like back in the 90s people had the average person had access to something like GarageBand on a Mac, or a PC downloading something like Audacity that I use to record this show. The fact that we have access to these tools now to where you can have multi-track upon multi-track for whatever songs that you want to create is an amazing creation. And I get with independent bands, especially back in the 90s, 80s, 70s and whatnot, they did have their limitations, but again, for me, it's probably just more of a nitpick than anything else. But the accordion is what stuck out now. Track number 2, King of Carrot Flowers, parts 2 and 3. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is obviously got two kind of songs going on within this song, and it blends into the first song. So you as you're listening to the album, you're not really quite sure when this song has started. But it starts with this sort of really odd "I love you, Jesus Christ" lyrics. And I'm not a particularly huge fan of that section of the song, but then it comes around again to sort of the theme of the first song. And you first hear the horn section in the second part of this song, and I really like the horns in this album. So I like the second part of the song, and I don't like the first part of the song very much.
Well, for me, in this particular song, the fuzz effects that they used, again, was something that was a little distracting. And by distracting, I mean, for me, when I listen to a song, I don't necessarily want to be focusing on one particular thing unless that one particular thing is just so amazing. What I mean by that is this. Think of the song Let's Dance from David Bowie. What did he do? He got someone by the name of Stevie Ray Vaughan to play guitar on that album, on that particular song, and he doesn't play much on her, but when Stevie Ray plays, you're paying attention to it. But sometimes, and I'm not even singling this band out. There are a lot of bands that are guilty of it, but it's just the fuzz, a little too distracting, I thought. Didn't contribute to the song. To your point, I really did love the horn solo in this song. I really loved that. The vocals were probably a little too monotone for my taste. A similar issue I had with the Smiths album. I do like, generally the singers I like are ones that are a little bit more emotive in terms of have a bigger range singing. Doesn't mean I don't like the occasional kind of monotonish type of singer, but it has to be for the special moment. But one thing too is, did they really use the theremin in the song? It sounded like they used a theremin.
I'm not sure I know what that is.
It's a musical device. I know Jimmy Page used it for the song Dazed and Confused. It's kind of I know Brian Wilson also used it a lot during the making of Pet Sounds, but it's like this electronic device that it's weird. They're like two metal poles, and then you kind of like move your hand in between the two metal poles to make weird wavy. Ooh.
So they do use actually a musical saw in the album on various tracks, and that sort of has a similar sound to what you're describing.
Okay.
Big,
Exactly like that.
So I, in the reading that I did about the album, that wasn't mentioned. Like there are some Highland pipes and, different horns, accordion, the saw, in terms of instrumentation. But I didn't see anything about that.
Okay. It sounded like a theremin, but to your point too, I mean, playing a saw does have this, kind of that same wavy type of sound that you have. But the next track on the album is the title track for the entire album, "In the Aeroplane Over the Sea."
Yeah, love this song. We kind of get back to the sort of jangly guitar, nice melodic singing, and great lyrics. So I love this song.
For me, the initial thought I had was that it came across like an Irish pub song that was being used in a 50s surf movie.
Interesting, yeah.
Because it does have kind of, you just expect like Annette Funicello to be like dancing, with her surfboard or something like that. and also too, it did, this song in particular, but the band overall, it sounded like the child that would be made if Brian Wilson and Bob Dylan had a baby.
Oh, nice. I love that.
Yeah, because with Bob Dylan is famous and early Bruce Springsteen as well.
Sure.
In terms of being, when they wrote a song, they wrote a song. I mean, we're talking books are made just out of one song, just a lot of lyrics. And Brian Wilson, of course, being one of the master experimenters in popular music, starting in the 60s with the Beach Boys, and he's still active today. I even read, too, that the album, that when they made this album, the studio was called Pet Sounds.
Oh, yeah. That's absolutely right. In Denver, I think.
In Denver, yeah. So I hearing this, I did not realize that that there was that obvious of connection with Brian Wilson, but I heard it and it was just like they had to. They're fans of Brian Wilson. They have to be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and in this track you get lots of fun instrumentation because the saw's in there, all the different horns, the accordion. Mm-hmm. It does have that sort of circusy almost feel to it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the next one, Two-Headed Boy.
Of course, I also love this song. I like most of them, but I really like this one. I think that Jeff's voice is really gorgeous in this song, and the melody is really simple, but he's singing really aggressively, maybe, or with more emotion, less monotone, I would say. And the lyrics are really amazing. He's got some great alliteration and images. Mm-hmm. He talks about, it's almost like he's talking about love as being Christmas packages under a Christmas tree. And he sort of talks about snow and sort of creates this scene that you can really sink your teeth into, I think.
Giggity. No, I didn't want lust for Christmas, Mom. Take it back. For me, this song reminded me of coffee shops in the 90s.
Oh, nice.
Not so much.
I loved coffee shops in the 90s.
Well, I did too, but I just think of the stereotypical, just the guy with the guitar just going nuts and singing, and just I couldn't relate to the song. I couldn't relate to it, and it just was just like blah blah. Wait to the next one. Wait to the next one, and this wasn't my cup of tea. Let's put it that way.
Got you. Not your cup of coffee.
No. Or quadruple cappuccino. I don't know. All right, the next track is The Fool.
Yeah, so this is kind of. I wasn't a super fan of this song because it has no lyrics, and so I'm very into Bob Dylan and Brian Wilson both, but Bob Dylan because of he's a lyrical genius. But so lyrics are important to me, and so this song very horn heavy, lots of. It's almost like a march sounding. There's this big bass drum sound, and then you get some like industrial sounds, and it sort of sounds like sirens, and it melds into the next song. So this is one of those songs I never really thought of as a separate song.
And that's sometimes you find that in albums too, like the Motley Crue album "Shout at the Devil." The very first track on the album is technically a song; it's its own separate track, but it's not really a song. It's there to set up "Shout at the Devil."
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Diamond Dogs, David Bowie. The very first track on that album is its own individual separate track, but it's there to set up Diamond Dogs. And
that's what this song feels like. It feels like it's setting up the Holland 1945 song that follows, which is, it's about Holland 1945. Presumably has something to do with Holland 1945. And there was a war going on there, right? And so The Fool has sort of a militaristic-y, marchy prelude to that. Makes sense.
Yeah. For me, this song actually reminded me of the James Bond movie Live and Let Die.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because at the beginning of the movie, they're in New Orleans, and there's a funeral the funeral procession coming down the road, and they're playing music that's very similar in tone to this. And then what happens is that a couple of the guys in the funeral band spot a CIA agent, kill him, and then with the coffin that they had, you find out it was a fake coffin with a false bottom. So they take the guy that they killed and immediately put him in the coffin, and then they're able to hide him because he's not there anymore. And then all of a sudden, and
right.
I almost expected something up tempo to automatically hit with that. But when I heard it, to your point, I didn't consider it its own song to really be judged in and of itself. But I thought, this would be something you would hear in like New Orleans.
Interesting.
All right, the next track, you've already mentioned it here, Holland 1945.
Yeah, so this song is really where we get into what has been said about this album, which is that Jeff Mangum wrote most of these songs after reading the Diary of Anne Frank, being really moved by it, and then also having some nightmares. And so it's, we'll never know exactly what these songs are about, but this one feels really like related to the Holocaust. So it has really, it's an upbeat song in terms of the tempo and the melody, but the lyrics themselves are really disturbing if you listen to the lyrics. So, there's a whole thing about being buried alive and 500 families being buried in a mass grave, and
why wasn't this on MTV?
Excellent question. The song is not my favorite. It's uncomfortable to listen to for me. It's not something that I want to listen to in the car and sing along to. It definitely is upsetting every time I hear the song. So it's not my favorite song from the album.
Okay. For me, my critique, this is something I would probably go with the whole album overall. The vocals are very much an instrument, just like guitar, bass, drums, and all anything else you want to use in a song. But sometimes I felt in this album's case that there could have been some editing done with the lyrics and not have them be such a focus. because I think it ended, for my taste, it ended up drawing me away from enjoying what the rest of the musicians in the band were bringing to the forefront here. And I'm not saying, I wanted an album with no lyrics whatsoever. I just think that he was a little too verbose, when writing the songs, and I think maybe cutting down some of the songs in terms of just going through and editing them would make it more of an overall experience, at least for somebody with my wild and wacky taste in music. So overall, the music itself I really enjoyed. The lyrics, not so much, not because I thought they were bad by any means, but I just thought that there was just too much of it. And I think a lot more could have been said by not saying what he said, if that makes sense.
Sure, absolutely. You just really reminded me. Have you seen the movie Amadeus from way back in the 80s?
Familiar with it, but I haven't seen it, no.
I mean, this is essentially the critique of Mozart, right? There are too many notes. There are just too many notes. Just take some of the notes out, and it would be better. There's just of course, Mozart's never going to do that, and of course, Jeff Magnum was never going to do that. Right?
Yeah, and I don't expect.
He was auteuring this.
Yeah, and this is why I brought up the disclaimer at the start when we started. This is just simply my opinion based on my musical taste. I am not wrong. He is not wrong for creating the album the way he did, and the fact that I believe it's sold well over 300,000 copies so far, and is considered one of the best albums of the '90s. The album speaks for itself. So regardless of whether I like it or not, is at the end of the day irrelevant. But I'm just giving my opinion.
Sure, absolutely. I just thought it was funny that it sounded so much like what people said about Mozart.
Amadeus. Yeah. All right, the next song, Communist Daughter. What'd you think of it?
So this is a very, to me, this is the song that typifies the album because there's this great contrast between the distortion and the instrumentation. There's like air raid siren sounds, and it sounds like somebody's tuning a radio. And then what is really sort of sweet and gentle melody. Although the lyrics being strange. So you got like some jarring instrumentation and background and distortion. You got this really simple melody and a lovely voice singing it, and then the lyrics are just kind of off the wall. So like he repeatedly is singing "Seaman stains the mountaintop" at the end of this song, and it's like, I don't understand what, I don't get it.
That's one hell of an orgasm.
Right? But it feels like that's surely not what he was talking about, but maybe it was.
I can hit that from here.
And then this really great horn solo at the end that sort of lifts you up, and you sort of go frolicking along the mountaintop with them,
Mm-hmm. For me, I got the impression that, at least with this song, he was influenced by the Nirvana song "Something in the Way." Now, "Something in the Way" is one of the last tracks on Nevermind, and kind of really slow. It's slow, especially for Kurt Cobain, and he sang it almost in a monotone voice. I mean, speaking in monotone again, but just he brought so much just despair and sadness to that song. I had a similar type of vibe. I just thought that this version was a little bit more up tempo. Still a little too maudlin for my taste. Again, growing up with the music I listened to, like a little more lively type of song for the most part. But I could definitely see some of the influences that led to this particular song here. So,
nice.
The next one, "Oh Comely."
Oh Comely. So this is like the song. It's an 8-minute song. And most of the other songs on the album are, less than 2 minutes or 3 minutes ish. Mm-hmm. So this is the big song, and the song that I heard before I ever heard the album, and I love this song.
Why is that?
It's just so audacious to write an 8-minute song that makes no sense.
Well, Freddie Mercury can do it.
I mean, I think it's very droning. It's very monotone in the singing. The vocals are a little bit whiny, but the lyrics really are the stars of this song, and there's such great alliteration and images. Like, it's just brilliant. It's like listening to a Bob Dylan song where you're like, I wish Bob Dylan wasn't singing this, and I wish that there were some instruments other than a guitar, but the lyrics are a genius.
Well, this did remind me of more 90s coffee shop fun. I did think it went on for a little too long for my taste. There were some elements that I did really love. Now, near the end, they have kind of a vocal solo, but it was more like la da da, that type, because it sounded like what they did, and it was interesting. It sounded like that they cut a particular part of the singer making a particular note, but then just kind of spliced it and kept on splicing it to make it sound like it was continuous. It was kind of like weird it sounded to me, I thought it was digital, how they did that. It sounded like it was cut up in particular to make that, and I thought that was rather inventive. And the instruments in the song, I thought really kicked ass, especially near the end. My interest definitely picked up near the last part of the song, but again, opening with just the guitar and whatnot, just. Give me my coffee to go. All right, the next song, Ghost.
This is a little bit more upbeat song, and it's got the saw at the end, which I like, with the horns. So the end of the song is definitely my favorite part of this song. It's not my favorite. Okay. I mean, I think the lyrics in the song sort of being about death and everybody dying, but nobody ever really dies, is an interesting sort of perspective. So I appreciate the song for that, but I don't really like listening to this particular track.
Well, for me, I got a Smashing Pumpkins type of vibe when it opened. It sounded like something that the Pumpkins did in their Melancholy, in the Infinite Sadness period. But overall, I still felt the vocals got in the way of the music. Just in the sense that there was so much focus on getting the lyrics out that you didn't take the time to really appreciate some of the music that was happening in the background. And again, I'm not gonna lie, overall I'm probably admittedly not gonna listen to another album from this band again, but doesn't mean that I dislike them. I thought the music was, for the most part, on par, and was rather enjoyable, and I enjoyed that here. But again, if they had just done a little bit more editing on the lyrics for the song and just not have it be so verbose, I probably could have gotten into the songs a little bit more, but that's just me.
So maybe you like the next track better because it was another instrumental, which was untitled instrumental. So another one of those like little snippets that leads you to the next track. But I really liked this one snippet. It feels very circusy to me, and there's like trombones and bagpipes, and it just sounds like a party, that track.
You are correct. I did enjoy this song.
Okay.
It kind of had a feeling of like a rock and Irish pub, and it also reminded me of a lot of early songs from The Who. There's a song they did, I forgot which album, but it's called Cobwebs and Strange. It's an instrumental song, but I just pictured it would be the perfect song to use in like a silent movie. Because you could just picture like two people just like yelling at each other. Like one part is Keith, like one part of the song is like Keith Moon doing a drum solo, and then the other thing is like Pete Townsend doing a guitar solo in response and whatnot. And I really got a vibe of Cobwebs and Strange from this. So really, really good song.
Cool.
I liked it.
I'm glad.
Mm-hmm.
And
now
then we come to the last song.
The Coup de Grace.
Coup de Grace.
Two-Headed Boy, Part 2.
So, I think we show up at this song, having listened to the whole album, you show up at this song hoping for some kind of resolution of what's been happening musically, maybe not so much lyrically, but I think that you get that in the song, and it harkens back with the jangly guitar again, a really nice melody. And it feels like a love song or love poem, which it felt like at the beginning of the album was more about love, and then we got into the dark stuff about the Holocaust, and now we're sort of back again to love. So I love this song. When I sing this song in the car, which I do a lot, I sing harmony with Jeff, and I think there's sort of a harmony part missing from the song.
I think for me, a last track on an album doesn't necessarily need to be like Won't Get Fooled Again type of epic. This is the greatest way to end any sort of musical experiment ever type of deal. But I just felt the song kind of fell flat. It had a great intro, but it went right back to just the lyrics and the acoustic guitar, and it's not that it needed like a full orchestra or anything like that to make it better, but I think that they could have. It's like making a soup and tasting it and then realizing that maybe if you added a little bit of salt or a little bit of paprika or something like that. To me, it just was missing an element or two that could have made it a little more rich than what it was. So to be clear, I'm not saying I thought it was bad. I just thought it was just with the way, especially this song had the unique intro. It just was just like, and we're done. And I just wanted something a little bit more. But I'm also finicky, so what do I know? So.
Well, it sounds like you enjoyed at least part of the album.
I did.
And that you appreciate it for what it was, really, which was a pretty special album, even if you didn't like it.
That
particularly, right? That,
and of course, the big thing about doing this album focus is that it allows whoever is on the show at the time, whether it's me or Kim or this week you and me, I find out more about you by finding out your taste in music, and that's, to me, that's the beauty of it. So, yeah, I'm not going to lie and say when I go home tonight, I'm going to crank this all the way up and it'll be on my, playlist forever and ever. That's not going to be the case. I'm usually pretty much a stickler and will still listen to, the 70s and 80s metal that I usually do. But this album had some great moments in it musically. The singer is not a bad singer by any means whatsoever. I don't want to give that impression. And I think he was also the songwriter as well. I just thought that overall, if there was a little more effort to kind of not be as verbose with the vocals and just kind of let everything have its moment in the sun, I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more than I did.
Right on.
So, my fair assessment. So, that brings us to the end.
I'm so sad it's over.
Well, hopefully it won't be the last time.
Maybe not.
So if Kim ever goes to work again, I forgot to mention, too, I did give her a Christmas present. I'll show you the picture here, but I was absolutely shocked and stunned when she cried.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. Let's see here. And of course I don't. I do. A Princess Leia purse.
It's a Princess Leia purse.
Yep. And I was definitely glad that she ended up enjoying that gift. So next week, I will want to have myself patted on the back some more, and you'll definitely hear about how I made her cry. So there's that, and then next week, of course, we'll talk about the results of the voting for the battle for state supremacy, and we'll find out officially whether Michigan or Oregon has won.
I look forward to finding out. I'm afraid I'm not going to like the results, but...
Well, I mean, the results are technically already on Twitter since the poll finished up. I just, since it was Kim and I who did the battle, I thought we discuss
Sure.
the results when she was on. But
absolutely, that's only fair.
Who did you vote for?
I voted for Kim.
The show's over. No.
But I did, as you requested... And I went and listened to each of the playlists, and I chose the one that I liked best. And it was Kim's. Like, I think that you had an amazing array of talent to choose from with Michigan, and you just made choices that weren't particularly for me. Whereas Kim and I think, have more similar music taste.
Yep. Yeah, like you mentioned with the Smiths, sure. What I forgot what you told me when you listened to that particular episode.
I don't remember what I told you.
You were on Team Kim. That's right.
Oh, right. Yeah, yes. So, I was really happy that you guys talked about the Smiths on the show.
Yep. And and when it comes to the battle for state supremacy, I mean, there's really no scientific way to judge this. It boils down to your personal interest. So, Kim got some votes, so that's good, and I got votes too, and that's really good. But next week we will find out who the official winner is, and then we'll from there talk about the movie that one of us will have to go to. Because that was the whole thing too. The winner will go to a movie of their choice, but the loser would have to pay.
Right. Nice.
So
I like it.
We'll find out what happens there, and we're going to be doing this again too. I really liked the battle for state supremacy, just the whole research aspect of it, and finding different artists. Like I'm not going to lie and say every artist on my list is always in my playlist, and I've loved them forever and ever. I mean, the Spinners. I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I've heard that song, but damn good song, Sure. So being able to do that for other states will definitely be fun, and exploring states like your home state of Tennessee will be fun.
Yeah, Tennessee will be a great state. You'll have to match it up with another great state like Virginia,
and not Delaware,
and not Maine, maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, Delaware does have George Thorogood, but I think that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe some Zydeco player. I don't know.
Zydeco's more Louisiana, I think.
Still, I don't know. You know how white people love to appropriate music. So. Anyway, that is it for this episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. We will see you next week. And remember...
It's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. You're growing inside, and when you wake up ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy new day. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling. The feeling you know that I'll be back when the day is new. And I'll have more ideas for you. And you'll have things you'll want to talk about. I will too. You always make each day such a special day. You know how? By just your being you. Only one person in the whole world like you. That's you yourself. I'll be back next time. Bye-bye.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.